Hello everyone, and welcome to our 4-day workshop on architecture and interior design in Archline XP. Today is day 1. My name is Mojca Valant. I'm architect, tutor, and support in Adriabim group. We together create workshops for architects, designers, and engineers for software educational topics. If you want to know more about the company ADISTE and Adriabim group, you can follow these two links. You will hear more about solutions for architects, designers, and engineers. So what we will discuss in this 4-day workshop. The topic is architecture and interior design, and goal of this workshop is to learn the basics of 2D drawing and 3D modeling in Archline XP. And if you follow along, do your homework, which I will give you in the end of the workshop, you can learn to create 3D models and 2D planning in Archline XP software. How will this work? I will actually inform you 1 hour before the workshop and later when this finish with all the material and all the homework. In the last day, 4th February, I will send you the exam, which will be a key to obtain a certificate of the completed workshop. What is your workflow in this workshop? You can watch, listen, take a note, ask a question. If you have 2 monitors, you can try Archline during the workshop, or even if you don't have 2 monitors, you can try. But the webinar is going a little bit quicker than usual tutorials, so maybe it's better to just listen and watch, and later you can watch it again and try the Archline. And of course, if you do your homework after the workshop, you will learn more than just watch and listen. So I suggest you to follow the instructions and do your homework, which you can send back to me. And if you have any questions on issues, we can solve it on the spot. I will be happy to help you. So what is our 4-day agenda? Today we will be learning about reception room, creating a living room design, and architecture basics. We will create a small architecture house. Tomorrow, we will hear about bathroom design. Here, the major tool is tiling. Kitchen design is also in 2nd day. Now we will hear about the tool KBB design, KBB tool. The 3rd day is all about documentation. And the last day are lights and rendering. So these are the products of the participants from previous workshops. So if you follow the homework, you can learn a lot in just 4 days. So these are some examples that students sent to me. So what is Archline? Archline is software created for architects and interior designers, basically, also for engineers. And it has CAD and BIM tools. The founders are CADline in Hungary. It has 3 products. We will be hearing all just in Archline Professional in this workshop. Archline and LT are actually visually just the same. What is the difference? That Professional gives you more tools. It has more tools available. Archline Life is created only for visuals, so we cannot plan a house or interior design in it. We can just import a project which has been already created in Professional or LT and create photorealistic pictures and virtual walks. So if I compare Professional and Live environments, you can see that the right one is more photorealistic. So what are the advantages for Archline? It is very easy to use, easy to learn. It is compatible with other softwares, for example, Revit, SketchUp, AutoCAD, and so on. So, for example, if you have a colleague who is working with Archicad or something else, you can send the files to each other and it will work in Archline normally. You can open their files in Archline. It has also access to online BIM libraries, and you can find a lot of tutorials on YouTube. Archline's dev has good and fast support, and it contains CAD tools. That's why it is easy to transform from 2D software to 3D. So these are the examples of foreign people who created interior and architecture design. And what is my experience? I think Archline is very good for interior design projects. I'm using it for this and renovation projects. What I like is I can create everything in one project, from the 2D existing plans to 3D rendering. So today we are going to hear two webinars. First webinar content is living room design. We will create wall, windows, and doors, and then find out what a tool Room Maker does. We will insert curtains and textures. Then we will insert furniture and lights. Then we will see how to set lighting and sun in a room. And in the end, we will create rendering. In the second webinar, we will see architecture basics. So we will start with simple lines, and then we will create walls. We will hear about floor manager, copied floors. So first floor will be copied in second, and we will use 3D warehouse furniture. Then we will see how to create 3D section, and we will hear about layers, which are actually the same as in example AutoCAD. And okay, that's it. That is the content of first and second webinar. I'm going to share it now. And in the end, I will also share the homework. So enjoy the webinar. And I will share the webinar now. And okay, enjoy. We will hear each other when this is over. This webinar is over.
This is what we are actually going to cover. A very simple yet effective and I think rather nice living room design. This is not my design per se. This was made by one of our clients, and I'm very grateful for the project that she sent to us. And what we are going to do, we are discussing how to make this very simple room with the furnishing pieces over there. If you have any questions, then you can ask your questions along the way, and at the end I'm going to do my best to answer them. And you can follow along for sure, but you don't have to worry. This course is going to be available once the live show is over. So if you want to go over the details once again, you can do that. You don't have to use the latest version of Archline XP, but the free trial version of 2020 is available to everybody. So if you want to get the most up-to-date version, go for a trial and then let's get to it. So this is where we get started. This is the final result, what we are hoping to achieve, but that's not where we start, of course. So we just go to File and open up a new project. And we quit without saving. And we end up with this. This is the view where you can actually find the older projects that you have, but we are not reaching back to an older project. Instead, we are going to go for a new and clean one. So that's where actually it gets done. So this is where you're actually going to work. A quick recap of the interface. I'm not going to show everything because we are going to discuss things as we go, but just to give you an idea. So up here you find the tools that you will be using most frequently. Tools for architecture, interior design, drafting, dimensioning, and documentation. Over here on the left, you will see our design center and the material and object properties. This is going to be very relevant later on. Over here on the right, there are two very important things, the project navigator and the help. The help is always going to show you the tool and teach you more about the tools that you are using. The project navigator, we are not going to use that frequently, so we are just going to go let it go into hiding. If you want to show it, you have to click on this pin button, but otherwise it's going to go into hiding. If your software doesn't look this way, then you can go to view, user interface, and reset everything to the factory default, which is one of the tools I fell in love with in the first place. You just click on this thing and everything goes back to normal. I wish more things would be like that. So let me just pull up my cheat sheet because there are so many numbers that I have to remind myself what we are going to do. So how do we get started? There are several ways actually. If we go to the building menu, you can create a drawing made of walls. Before we do anything, let's just right click on the walls and see its properties. We see a wall which is 2700 millimeters. Right off the bat, let's stop right here. I'm currently working in millimeters, and here you can see that it's in millimeters as well. If you want to change it to something else, you can do that in the settings menu. So you just go to the settings, this cogwheel, and go units and angles, and here you can override that, but I'm going to use it in millimeters for now. So let's go back to the walls, right click, properties, and here I can define how high my walls I want to be and how thick they should be. And for now, I'm fine with that. So let's just hit OK. We are working with a predefined room shape. I'm not going to sketch the room because that might be a little bit time consuming. So instead, I'm just going to pick a room shape, and I can do that with the interior room maker predefined rooms menu. Right off the bat, I start with a rectangle, and all I have to do, I just have to type in the values. Let's say I want to have a 6000 times 3900 millimeters room, then this is what I end up with. I'm just going to submit 7160 and 3900 is fine. Updates, hit close, and now I end up with a room. Let's talk about navigation. There's a 2D and there's a 3D part. When you are in 2D, you can navigate by scrolling in to zoom in and scroll out by zooming out. Pushing the scroll key and moving your mouse, you can navigate around, you can pan around, and if you have moved quite far away, then double click with the mouse scroll and the model would be fit back to screen. If you want to work in the 3D, which you can do anytime you want, you activate the 3D and activate this button right here, which magnifies the window which is in focus. Now zooming in, zooms in with the scroll, zoom out, scroll out. If you want to rotate your model, you just push the right click on your mouse and move your mouse. If you want to orbit around your model, push the mouse wheel and the shift key, and then you can orbit like that. So this is basic navigation. If you want to pan, hold the scroll key and move your model. Now let's go back to the 2D, activate it, because this is where we are going to do most of the work right now. There are two extra sort of extrusion from this model. There should be one bay here and another one there. So how do we create that quickly? We go to the building, edit, and square add-on menu, and here I can add the two add-ons. There should be one here, another one there. The add-ons sizes are, I just have to look at the cheat sheet. The width, the A value should be 3000, and the B value, the depth, should be 2240. By the way, if any of this is not understandable, let me know and I will explain further. So now I have a shape which I can add to my drawing, and I'm just going to snap this green dot to the edge, and there you go. So one add-on is done. Okay, I want to add another add-on, but I don't want to go back to the menu over here and find the right tool. Instead, I'm just going to use right click, and the software would offer the last command, which is a square add-on. This is what I'm pulling up, and the add-on sizes should be, again, I go to my trusty cheat sheet, it should be 1400 for width and 500 millimeters for depth. And I just add. How do I add it properly? I mean, how do I position it from the wall corner? There's a tool for that, and I can do that by pushing basically the add-on to the wall, and I see where it says nearest point, and then I can just type in the value 1400 and then this value would be submitted. So this 1400 comes from here. So okay, I think my drawing is getting together, but I have to sort of boost it somehow. I have to add a hole because I'm in a slab as a floor, because I can see through this thing, so that's not good. I go to the building menu, slab, right click, and go to properties. Now this is where you can define how the properties of your slab looks like. I'm fine with the covering, and I'm fine with the thickness and the base elevation. I'm not going to change that, but if you want to have multi-layered slabs or multicolored ones, then this is where you can set them up. Let's just hit OK. I'm accepting this right now. So I'm just going to go to slab, slab by walls, highlight the whole drawing, hit enter, and then the slab is created. You don't have to manually track the drawing, you just have to highlight the whole thing, hit enter, and it is created. Same story with the ceiling. Now let's investigate how that is done. So I go to ceiling and plane auto ceiling, right click, property again. I always like to fine-tune things before I use them, because then I don't have to go back and edit them. I like to do that before I get started. So two things I have to set up is the elevation of the ceiling, which is going to be 2680 millimeters. And the representation in 2D, I don't want this slash over here, so I'm just going to go with top view, and I think this is done. Okay, the ceiling is fine-tuned, so all I have to do, I go with ceiling and plane auto ceiling, and again this sort of spider web appears, which recognizes the contour of the room. So if I hit click, then the ceiling is created. Okay, this is a dilemma for me, because you know, I want to model things inside the room, but I can't do that because there's a roof above my room, so I can see it. So if I scroll in, I can see anything. So for that reason, we have a very effective tool, and that is called the Room Maker. Now what does this do? Instead of telling you, I'm just going to show you. So if I click on the Room Maker, again the spider web appears, making us think that maybe it's another ceiling or something, but no. If I click, the software puts me inside the room, where the usual navigation tools still work. So if I want to look around, I hold the right click and I just move around. I zoom in and zoom out, so nothing fancy appeared here. Then why should we use this? That's because if you want to add doors and windows, you can position things much easily. Let me just demonstrate. This is the wall where I want to add, for example, a nice large sliding door. How do I do that? I'm going to use one of the tools from this palette. I'm not going to explain them right now what they are. Instead, I'm going to show you. So let's start with the first one, which is the door library. Here you can find the door what you want to use, and you can put them onto the model. Let me just find the exact dimensions of this door, and that way I can use real world values instead of me finding out, because actually this is a recreation of a room, so I'm not going to have to end up with come up with customized values. So I'm just going to hit back here, and I see that now I'm in my door library. This is the objects. These are the objects you can work with. So if I go to the door library and I go indoors sliding, then I have an array of sliding doors you can work with. There's quite a few, so I don't know which one is good for me. I have a note of that, so I'm just going to hit here, search in this folder, and I'm just going to say single-sided. And here we go. We have a single-sided sliding door. I click on it, it doesn't appear. Why is that? Because first I have to customize the width, which is going to be 3140, and the height should be 2400. 2400, and let's just hit this check mark, because that would position my door. This is not the right position, so I want to push it towards this direction. I want it to line up with the wall corner. How do I do that? I do that by clicking on the distance from the left or right, and I'm just going to zero out distance from right, hit the refresh button, and the door nicely snaps to where it should go. And notice this is very interesting. When you work on the Room Maker, whatever you do here, the 2D and the 3D updates, so you don't have to go back and manually refresh these things. These things are going to be always in connection with your model, so you don't have to do things twice, which is, when it comes to modeling, is a huge time saver. So I'm just going to use this wall navigator to find the wall what I want to work with. That's the wall whatever I want to work, so I'm just going to move there. Just a second until I find it. I think that's wall number 9. So here I want to have a full wall-to-wall or corner-to-corner sliding door. This one, again, I'm using the same model, but this time the width is going to be different. I just have to put it to 3000, and the height should be 2400. Position it, and then it appears I don't have to this time set up the corner distance, because this magically fills up from corner to corner. So this is how you add doors. Let's move on to windows. Story is the same with slight variations. You have to take care of one extra data, and that is the seal height. Which window should I use? Again, I'm ended up with the library, so I'm just going to say, I think mine is called window default or something like that. No, that's not the, oh, default window. That's the one. And the width and height I should customize. The width should be 2000 millimeters, quite a large one actually, and the height should be 2100. And the seal height, well, I have to change that, otherwise it's going to go all the way out to outer space. So I'm just going to say this is 300 and positioning it. Right, so I think I might need to move it. So let's just set the distance from the left wall corner to 800 millimeters. Here we go. Okay. Again, I want to have a window next to this one, which is going from here to the corner. Do I have to worry about the software overlapping windows? No, because if you create another window, it's going to be always put into the place where it actually fits. Let me show you how that's done. So if you want to add another element of the same type to the same wall, you have to click on the green plus icon. Sorry. And then you just have to fine-tune how the next object should look like. The width should be 1100, and the height should be 2001. This is fine. Seal is good. Okay, let's position it. Nice. So I could potentially move this further, but I don't need to. So that's what I wanted to end up with, and there should be another window over here. And that is, if I look up the values, I think it should be the same kind of values. I'm just going to hit the check mark. But this time I have to snap it to the corner, which you might have guessed it, can be done by zeroing out the distance from the left. Notice how I haven't used any command lines and any layers so far, so you might say this is not even a CAD software. It is, don't you worry about that. We are going to get to that part as well. But I wanted you to show that I wanted you to see that modeling is what's in focus. We don't want to, I shouldn't say understand the details. We should instead focusing on creating things. So doors and windows are done. What is the next logical step? That is curtains. If I go to the curtain button, I can first define what kind of curtain type I want to use. Let's use this one. And then by clicking on the check mark, my curtain is created. Well, good thing about the curtain is that it has dynamic sort of properties which you can fine tune. So you can see how many pleats you want to have, or how deep you want to draw this curtain in. I'm not satisfied with its values for now, so I'm just going to change this to the height to 2680, and the bottom height this is the value what I'm talking about, should be 20. Okay, there we go. Fabric, well, this is not really good, so I'm just going to click on the paint bucket and find another material. Here in this list you can find a jump list of materials, and here I can find what I'm looking for, the curtain 002. I think this is a bit better. Let's create another curtain next to this one. How do I do that? It's this list over here, this jump list. This navigates between the windows I have available. So I just click on the next window, again click on this icon. I haven't copied the properties, so I'm just going to do them now. So I'm just going to say this is 20. And here we go. So this is how you can create another curtain above the other window. I'm just going to push this a little bit at the side, and that is what I wanted to create. But what happens if you want to find another material, something which is not in this list? Well, generally speaking, Archline XP comes with a huge list of materials and colors, but you have to keep in mind that the fashion changes much faster than our software does. So instead of finding new materials here, I always urge our customers to take a look around on the internet or in our own showroom. Now, what is the showroom? The showroom can be reached with this button over here by clicking on the showroom button. And this is actually a list of international manufacturers. Because if you are using something from this list, let that be an object or texture or anything like that, a painting maybe, then you can be sure that the element is 100% realistic. So you don't have to set up the material properties, sizes, anything. You just download what you need and then you use it. Let me show you how that works. let's say we want to have a curtain type. You can find something from this list, but if you have the name, then you can just look for that. The name is Montreal underscore F underscore 105, and I'm just going to go with search, and the software tells me that this is the one I'm looking for. If I click on it, I see the manufacturer data and some other elements from this same object family. I'm just hitting download, and the software will download this object to my library. So if I hit on it, I think my curtain has just replaced its properties, but I'm just going to move to the other curtain, and here I'm implementing this as well. So much better this way. Well, when it comes to fabrics, I'm not the guy to talk to because I usually don't see the difference in these things, but it's always my wife who comes in and fine-tunes my design when it comes to material properties and colors, but for now this one would do. The next task is basically how to keep on coloring things, and let me just go on my cheat sheet and talk about wall colorings. Or before we do that, I think the next step would be switches and sockets. Now, what we have to do, you might have already guessed it, first we have to find the wall on which I want to work, and then I have to find the element I want to position. Let me hit back and start with a socket. Socket outlets, very standard European socket. If you want to use the English one, we have them here as well. I don't want to put one socket, instead I want to have three, so grouping should be 3 horizontal. And the base offset from the floor should be 300 millimeters, because sockets should be closer to the floor. If it's too high, then, you know, cables will be hanging down. We don't want that. And we are just going to position that. And if we do that, the sockets appear. Nice. I can fine tune where they are, but I think I'm fine with that. Next task is to position the switches, the light switches, which are to be found here. Later on, we are going to have some light sources, so we need to have switches for them. Hitting back, and I'm just going to go with the switches, plate switches. This two-way switch would be fine. Again, I need 3. And the base offset from the floor, well, since this room is not going to be inhabited by kids only, the switches should be higher. Well, kids should not have access to the switches and sockets anyway, so let me just crank this up. I think it should be 1200. And if I hit the check mark, then the switches appear. So this is how you position switches. Let me just close down the room maker for a second, because what you see is on the 2D you can see the switches, 2-dimensional symbols, which are very good, because if you are later on going to create a lighting plan or electrical wiring plan, then you would need to have this kind of symbols. Let's go back to the room maker, which can be done by interior, room maker, and click. This was just a very short side note. Next thing, we have to add the skirting board or cornicing or molding. I'm not sure how you call it, but these are the tools you can use for that. There are 3 positions for this kind of profiles. On the top for the ceiling, in the middle, or at the bottom for the skirting. Now let's start with the one on the ceiling, and for that we have a profile library. I'm just going to go with PX-022. But the sizes are not good, so I have to change that. The width should be 20 millimeters, and the height should be 100. And if I hit the check mark, the skirting or cornicing or crowning is created. I'm not fond of the material, so I have to change that by going into the paint bucket and finding the one. I don't want it to be wood colored. It should be something like that. Light gray would be fine. And the same applies for the skirting, which should be another profile. Let me just find it real quick. Which one should that be? It's not here. So how do I find it? I'm going to the for the blue X, the cross, and I go to the profile library, and I'm looking for the profile what I need. It's called skirting board number 6, I think. So I'm just going to find 4, 5, 6. That's the one. So I'm just hitting OK. And then the width should be overridden. That should be 20 millimeters, and the height should be 150. That's fine. Check mark again. I'm not fond of this material again. I never am, so I'm just going to change it to something else. So this is how you create crowning and skirting board or cornicing, whichever name you use for it. Next task is to create the lamps. Now, what I'm doing now is something that you can do in the 2D and 3D as well. For now, we are doing it in the room maker because I want to show you how to position lamps with ease. So I'm just going to clicking on the lamp button. And first, well, let's find the lamp what I want to use. I don't have anything in this list what I like, so I'm just going to hit the plus icon and go into my lamp library. Let's just go back to the lamps and find something. I think this Delta Light one would be good. Excuse the Hungarian naming. This is one of the objects which is made by a Hungarian manufacturer. What is this light bulb over here? Now this is interesting. If any element has a light bulb icon, it means that it doesn't only look like a lamp, it's going to give out light. Hit OK and position the light source with X and Y values. This is like coordinates. I know that the X value is minus 100, sorry, minus 100 and 1800, and the base offset from the floor, I think it should be fine. How come the light doesn't have any light, you know? Well, this is because we are working in a 3D environment. Light comes at a later stage when you're rendering things. The software would be able to show the lights and the light patterns, but that would make work a bit slower because it would be heavier on your computer. So Archline likes to spare the resources. If you don't need the light sources now to emit light, then it's going to be turned off. Later on, we can turn this on. But before that, we want to add another set of lights, and that's going to be a spotlight. And for that, again, we hit the green icon, and the light should be a spotlight. It's not here, so I'm just going to go to lamp, and the name is grid in 2. There we go. X and Y position. This is different, so this time it's going to be 0 and 0. And I'm just going to position it there. There's only one copy of this, so I want to have 6. How do we do that? Well, you could do that in the room maker, but let me just show you a shortcut. This is a trick we picked up along the way, so let me just quickly find the relevant part and show you how to actually make an array of lamps. This comes at a later stage in your course schedule, but I think it would make more sense to actually show you now how it's doable, because in the software you are able to sort of multiply things using the edit, duplicate, and matrix tool. Unfortunately, this has nothing to do with the classic Keanu Reeves movie, but what it does is that it's going to make a assortment of lamps. So just click on the element you want to copy, find the picking point, and then decide how many you want. I want to have 3 horizontal and 2 vertical, and the values, I think these ones are good. So with this you can define how dense you want the assortment to be, and you just hit OK and define where you want to position your lamps. Click, and the lamps are created. So that's just a quick side note to show you that if you want to multiply things, you can do that. Now let me go back to the room maker and back to our course schedule, because there's a bunch of things I haven't told you before. I just wanted to have this very tiny side note. Let's talk again about lamps, because what we haven't discussed are the wall lamps. I need one here and another one there. Again, what we do is that we go to the lamp menu and find the wall lamp. This one is fine, and I need to define their properties. First of all, I want the sort of distance from the left and right to be accurate. So this one would be 400 from the left, and the base offset from the floor should be 1500. Hit the green button, and the lamp is created. I need to have another one, so I just click plus. Properties are the same except for the distance from the right, which would be 1000 millimeters. Okay, fine. So the wall lamps are now good. Next thing, what is the next button over here? That is actually the picture on the wall icon. Now with this you can add decorational elements and paintings on your wall. So let me just find one of the walls which are sort of hidden. I want to give this wall some kind of accent. So how do I do that? First, we need to find the picture we want to look for, we want to see. I think I'm going to use this this one from Arunas Zilis. One of my Lithuanian viewers might be able to correct my pronunciation. He's a very famous contemporary painter from Lithuania, and he's creating nice brightly colored, mainly yellowish oil paintings. So how do I put this onto this sort of surface? First, I want to have a frame, but matting I do not need. The base offset from the floor, is this good? I don't know. So let's just hit the check mark. No, it's too high. It's pushed into the ceiling. So the base elevation should be 1,200. Let's just hit the refresh button, and now we ended up with a nice painting. That's one way to do it. Let me show you the other one. And for that, we have to navigate back to that big wall with the wall lamps. I think it's over there. Yeah, I want to have a nice map over here. Why a map, you ask? Well, I like to have maps on the wall. It's sort of, especially if they are older maps, they show you like a sense of tradition, showing that things happened before we came around, and things happened and people lived and prospered before we inhabited this earth. I know it's a bit sentimental thinking, but I like to sort of see these things, the material evidences of people living in the past. So what I do is that I disable the frame. I don't need that. And the width and height I have to change. The width should be 1,200, and the that's not the actual width. I just have to keep on scrolling in my agenda, because the width is going to be 2,200, and the height should be 2,450. Distance from the left, I don't want this painting to overlap with any of my lamps, so this would be 850, and the base offset from the floor should be 150. And if we hit OK, then all we have on the wall is the map of London from 1832. Quite a nice one. It goes with the style of my skirting board and cornicing, but it's not really going with the flooring. So I need to change this flooring ASAP, otherwise it's going to have a very bad effect. So by clicking on this button, I can pull up the different covering styles, but I just go with this oak truffle colored. I think this goes much better with my painting. So this one is fine. Next thing I have to set up is the wall covering, because so far everything is whitish. You might not want that. So let me just go to one of the walls and change its covering. Or better said, how do we change the covering for all the walls? All I have to do, I have to go to my material library. I don't have anything I like here, so I'm just going to hit the plus icon and look for light gray and find it. Hit OK and say all walls. Click on it and all the walls are changed. But let me circle back. This accent wall is not good this way, because this should have a different, like a darker tone, so this painting would really be, emphasized. So what do we do then? We go back to where we started here, but this time I have to remove the check mark and go to the material library and find another texture. This should be black blue, I think. And here we go. This time only this wall changed, so that's exactly what I wanted to end up with. I'm going to close the room maker for now. And here's the problem. How do I get into this model? Whatever I do, let me just magnify it. Whatever I do, I never get inside. So why is that? That is because we are working in a view which is called axonometry. Axonometry means that wherever you are, distances would never get shorter. If we would physically stand here, we would see these two lines to get closer to each other with distance, but this is not the case. This is an axonometric view which is good for planning things, but when it comes to interior design, you have to rely on something that we call the perspective views. If you click on this eye icon, the perspective view appears. First thing that we have to realize is that this is where we are, this is where we look, and this is how wide we see. So if I click on this item over here, I can drag where I actually am. Why does my floor plan looks like this? This is because the representation is changed. So I have to click on this button to have a proper 2D view and not a top view. So let me just move this marker inside my room and turn my head like this. So this is what I want to see. If I'm fine with this, I click on the plus icon and then I can name my viewpoint. Now, how should we set up these viewpoints? Well, first it's good practice to have the z value where we actually are, the height, to have the same height as our eye level. Mine should be 1,700. I think I've shortened that, but this one would be fine, because that would give you a bit more realistic viewpoint. Then we have to double click and name the views. I think it should be reception room 001. And if I want to have another perspective, all I have to do, I change where I am, I change what I'm looking at, and hit plus again, and should be reception room 002. Okay, I think I'm fine with that. I'm not going to make more of these, but very important that if you want to toggle between these views, you can use these keys down, the up and down keys, or you can just punch the page up and page down keys, and that way your position in the room would be moved. Important, you see this marker over here. This is where you can fine tune where your perspective actually is. Just grab onto it and move it wherever you want. And if you like this, then you can save this view as an additional one. So using perspectives is very important for creating visuals, because rendering is never realistic in axonometry. Moving on, there's a couple of things we have to clean up, and one of these things is the corner window. Let me just move my perspective over here. This is a mess, so this is not good. How do I make the divider, the mullion, disappear? For that we have a tool, and that is in the building window on wall corner, and join two openings to be at the wall corner, and all I have to do, select one of the windows and the other one, and the connection is created, but at the same time the window would be moved. So if I move here, I see that here now is a divider. I don't need that, so I'm clicking on the window and change its size to be original. Yeah, the other window I'm not going to mess around with, but this one is fine for my purposes. That's very good. So the windows are fine. I don't like the curtain here. I need to trim it back. So how do I do that? It's very important to make a note here. Wherever you are creating things, in the room maker, in the 2D, 3D, it doesn't matter. Things would be editable at a later stage anytime. So if I click on this curtain, I can trim it back even though it hasn't been created in the 2D, but I can trim it back anytime in the 2D as well. This is very important to know. Later on, I'm going to show you much more than that, but for now, this is the important thing to know. Okay, another thing. What if I want to change the texture of these windows? How do I do that? Do I need to go back to the room maker? Well, not exactly. I need to go. So I could go obviously back to the room maker, but I don't need to, because if I go to the material palette here on the left hand side, remember in the beginning I started with this part, what the interfaces mean. I just need to look for something. Looking for a material. This wood powder would be fine. Drag and drop onto the surface. Now when I drag and drop something onto the window, then two choices appear. One is that replacing the material with another. Now what does this do? This would override every single instances of this material with this one. But if I go with only on this object, then only on this window it would be changed. But I'm just going to go with on another and click, and every single instances would be changed. I think this is fine. Later on I might change it back, but for now I'm fine with that. So again, if you want to change something, click, drag, drop, and that way you can change things. Now let's talk about how do we basically furnish this floor plan. This doesn't have that much things going on, so let's just find a good view. Oh, by the way, if you use the page up and page down keys in the 3D, then the software navigates between the perspectives. But if you use the same key in the 2D, then it navigates between the floors. Now we only have one floor, so this makes no sense, but I just wanted you to know that if you somehow made the floor plan disappear, there are two things to know. One, hit double click, because that moves the model back to the view. But if it's still not appearing, just move the page up and page down keys, and then the model should appear. I think, yeah, here we go. Okay, so let's populate the floor plan with some objects, and for that we have several ways to do it. So just like with materials, you can either add things from our own object library, or you can reach out to external libraries such as the 3D warehouse or the BIM libraries that we have. We are going to look at them at the next course. For now, we are going to use whatever is inside the program. Start with something that something we can sit on, something which is in the center point of this room. Let's look for a sofa. Husk sofa I think sofa maybe. I think it doesn't have to have, yeah, it doesn't have to have dashes. So I'm grabbing the element, dragging and dropping it onto my floor plan. Okay, where do I put it? Where do I snap it? Well, for now, let's just position it. There are several problems with this sofa. For now, it's facing the wall, so that's not good. So how do we amend that? We click on the 2D, magnify the window, click on the sofa, and I have two rotation markers. One of the markers, if I click on it, it allows a free rotation of the element. So if you want to rotate it like this, you can do that. I don't like that, so I just want to undo this, which you can do by the undo button up here or by pushing Ctrl Z. Okay, another way to rotate things is click on the element and click on the moving rotation and or the rotation marker, rotate 180 degrees, and there we go. Okay, I don't like where it is. I want to move it closer to the wall. How do I do that? Click on one of the edge markers and move it closer to the wall. And I can just snap it actually on the wall, or just put it here. Okay, this is not good. Let's say that we are that I'm a cat person, which I'm not, but let's assume that I am. I want to have some kind of gap between the sofa and the wall so the cat would be able to go. So I'm just going to hit the wall, and hitting the Control key, I'm clicking this sofa. And now the software tells me that currently there's only 2 centimeters gap between the two elements. If I click on this marker, I can say I want it to have 100 millimeters. And that way you can move things, or you can sort of distance things from each other. So again, click on one element, click on the other one by holding the Control key, and then you can control how far things are away from each other. Now, what are we going to do in this room? We are going to watch TV from this element. So for that, we need to have, for example, some kind of TV stand, which would be this one. So again, what we do, we drag it, drop it. I want to snap this element to the wall, but I can't do it because the snapping point is in the top right corner of this, top left corner of this element. So by hitting on the F5 key, or just clicking on the next reference point, I can find the point which is on the bottom, and then I can just snap things. Let me just move it closer. I think, yeah, this is not going to work that way. It's going to push it to the other side, so I'm just going to put it there. Move it a bit because it's under the window, so I think this is fine. And I need to have a TV on this. So how do I do that? I go to the object library, and I think I need to have a wall TV. I think that will be fine. Position it and put it. Okay, there are two things not good with this model. Let me show it in the 2D. 3D, I mean. One problem is that it's actually turned away from us, and that I can amend again by clicking on this button and rotate it 180 degrees. Another and bigger problem is that this element is on the ground. Why is that? That's because the default values of this TV is that it should be on the snap to the ground floor, and that's not good. So if I click on the TV, I have two choices. I can either click on this rotational marker and move it up, or I can just go to the properties and add the base elevation. And the base elevation, this is not something I know, so I'm just going to use the marker. So I'm just going to move it a little bit higher. And again, the object is a little bit far away from the wall. That's not really realistic, so I'm just going to go back to the 2D, select the element and move it, snap it to the wall. So that's how you do that. Another thing I need to have is a bunch of sort of footrests and a table and other things. If you don't mind, I'm not going to do that because I have a final stage of this model which we are going to use for rendering. So what I would have done is that you could have just added more objects, you know, rinse and repeat, drag and drop elements, move them, rotate them, resize them if you want. But for now, we are just going to jump into another instance of this project, which is the finalized version with all the objects ready. I'm not revealing a big secret if I say that this project has not been done by me. So that is to say it's much more elaborate than what we have time for in about 45 minutes. But to be honest, in 45 minutes we managed to end up with something spectacular. But this is the end result. Again, if you want to look around, right click and move your mouse button. Okay, I think this is fine. Let's navigate around and see my views. Page up and page down navigates between the views. This is fine. What about creating a few renderings? How do we create one? Well, first of all, there are three things you need for a good rendering, and these are three sort of golden rules. One is that you should have a good perspective, because you want to know what you want to show. You want to have a very realistic outcome, something what is believable that this is actually a real world environment. The other thing you have to set up is the material properties. Later on I will show you that in another course. And the third thing is the lighting and the light sources. I am going to talk about lamps at a later stage, but one of the light sources, which is very evident that it's there, is the sun. So how do we turn on the visibility of the shadows? So how do we see what kind of effect the sun has on my model? Well, first of all, we have to go to the 3D activated, and here on the left you see this button over here which toggles the shadows on and off. Now I see that I don't see anything. Why is that? That is because the sun is in a position where it's not really lighting up my scene. So it's a good thing I didn't do a rendering, because otherwise the sun would have been no character in my design. So how do we change that? Let's go to the view button, and here I have a bunch of tools targeted for shadow simulation and modeling shadows. So first let's start with sun and sun position. Here I have a predefined city list. List of cities where we can actually position this model. This is going to be in Budapest, where I'm actually am right now, and the date should be, I think it's April 15th. I think it's today. Let me just. It's actually 16th. I'm never good with dates. And it should be. What is the date today? What is the time? It's 11:46, I think. So I'm just going to do it 11:46. North direction. Well, I don't have that. Well, it's even no, it's not worse. It's lighting up my scene from behind. I don't like this shadow. I want it to move somewhere else. How do I do that? I go to shadow, and I'm sorry, shadow simulation. Yeah, and here I can move my sun. I have the power over the sun. And I wanted to come up with a Latin name of the sun to sound even more professional, but I can't think of it. If you know it, please leave it in the comments. So if you move the sun, you can move the time and the date of your scene, and you can find the best results. So I think this is fine. This is, giving me enough sunlight to come in. What happens if I want to show the shadows in movement, because I want to pick the right date? I do that with shadow and shadow animation. This looks like the same window as I used before, but only this time I can choose that from what time until what time I want to see the shadows moving, and in what kind of increments. I want to see every 5 minutes, preview, and now the software tells me that this is actually how the sun should look like. Okay, this is fine, I think. So for now I'm going to turn off the shadows. And before we start rendering, let's talk about representation styles. That's something that we haven't talked about before, but it's worth mentioning. If you go to the 3D and click on this box over here, you see certain representation styles. Hidden line removal gives you a very cutting edge, white and clean design. That's very good for conceptual kind of work. Wireframe does the same thing, only this time you end up with a bunch of lines because you have X-ray vision now. But where it becomes interesting is this realistic. Now, what does realistic do? Well, what it does is that it's still not a rendered image, so it's not realistic in photorealism sense. Instead, what happens is that materials which are the same would look differently on different surfaces. For example, the top of this cabinet is darker than the side, because that's how in real world it should look like. If you want to have a consistent color representation, then everything goes back to the way it was before. This is better for sort of deciding what is the best texture or best color for that particular surface. So again, these are the representation styles. If you don't have the same one as me, just keep on clicking on this until you find the right one you want to work with. I think we are done with this, but the question is, how do we make an image like that? That's what we want to achieve, and for that there's rendering. Now in Archline, first what you do is that you set up the right sort of perspective. That is the no-brainer one. I can fine-tune it with this kind of marker, and then let's just put it to large screen and go with rendering with this orange button over there, or you can achieve that by the view button over there. So when you go with rendering, there's several settings. First, you have to decide on the resolution and what you want to see in the background. This is going to be a panorama, and you have to decide how much background light you want, and if you want to have an exterior or interior render. For now, we go with exterior because it's quicker. So at the beginning, we don't want to spend too much time on this. We just want to have one image which in a few minutes tells us how the end result should look like. Now the software loads up the rendering engine, and the model would appear in a second. So once the model appears, there are several things you could do. You could fine-tune the quality of the rendering, or you can fine-tune the background images or how light it should be. But the concept is the same. What is happening now is the software sort of starts to calculate the light and how the surfaces would react to the light. You see that you end up with something barely usable, something very darkish. I don't like that. The background is not light enough and the thing is whole noisy. But you could, even at this stage, emphasize certain elements with using the exposure tool or the brightness tool. So even when the rendering is not ready yet, you can fine-tune how the end result should look like. I want to change the background, how light that is, so I'm just going to crank up the brightness a bit. But for that, I would need to restart the rendering. Not from the beginning though, it's just the rendering itself. The transformation of the 3D model is already done, so I don't have to do that again. I think it's much better now. More light is coming in, so the end result is a bit better. And I'm going to have to go for an interior quick render, which is a higher resolution one. Again, stopping the rendering now, restarting it, and you end up with a better result right away. Now I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. This part of the webinar is pre-recorded because I don't want you to stay and watch until this thing renders. Rendering is by nature is a time-consuming process, but this is the way you can get photorealistic results, which you can save into an image file, which we are doing right now. So once you are done with the result, you can just hit the save button and save it into an image, a PNG or JPEG image, which you can send to your clients. Let me just do that real quick. Find my folder, and I'm just going to name my image something like rendered webinar or something. Webinar rendering, that's right. Hit save. And yeah, I think I need to find the right folder, otherwise it's going to go somewhere else. I'm just going to save it into the same webinar folder, and that way I can find it later on. You can fine-tune these things, obviously, but at this stage, this is what I want to have as a preliminary render. Later on, if I want to fine-tune it, I might end up with something much more interesting. It helps to crank up the resolution, of course. HD images are the industry standards, but with some work, this is what you can end up with from these things.
Okay, we will start now the webinar Archline Architecture Basics. Sorry, it will start in a few seconds.
Let's jump back into it. So this is where we want to go, and let's just open up a new project so that way we can start from scratch. By the way, if you have any questions about what I'm showing you right now, you can ask them in the chat bar, and at the end we are going to cover the answers to these questions. Now I see that many of you are checking in, saying hi to me, hi to you as well. There where you said hi, you can ask your questions. Okay, so what do we do here? Let's just circle back and investigate Archline with a fresh eye. First of all, we have a huge space over here in which I can do my drawing. I have a content library on the left where I can see all the objects and materials and whatnot, and up here I have the toolbars. Now, you know, without going through and explaining each and every tool what it does, because there's like a million of them, just like in any other CAD or BIM software, I'm going to show you them in action. Now, what is the first unit of working in a drawing software? What is the smallest thing you can think of? That's right, that would be a point, but the point is not that much to see. So instead, we are going to start drawing with lines. Now, if you want to draw anything in Archline, there are two ways to do it. You either go to the toolbar, find the tool that you're looking for, click on it, and then you can draw. Or if you are going from a CAD background and you have experience, you can type in a comment for that. It's going to be line, for example, and then you can draw with a line. Okay, so what do we do? First we have to click a starting point, and then we have to move our cursor to the direction into which I want to draw my line. Let's say I want to have a horizontal line like this big, and I want to have another one like this and another one like that. Okay, so let's use this knowledge of ours and draw a rectangle. Now if you want to finish the tool that you have just used, you can hit the escape button, and if you want to open this tool back again, you just have to right click, use the last command, or just go to the toolbar and find the command over there. So again, right click and last command, it's going to be a line. Okay, let's make an exercise over here. I want to create a rectangle, which is, let's say, 4000 millimeters in every direction. What I do is I start to pull my cursor like this, and instead of trying to find the 5000 mark with my cursor, which is impossible, I'm just going to type in the value 5000. There you go. And then what do? I move my cursor, and if I do it vertically, then the software would snap my cursor to a vertical axis, and then I can just type in the value again, 5000. There you go. Now I'm just going to make another line, but I don't have to type in the value this time. I can snap to this point over here. What is snapping? Snapping is actually a drawing aid. If I hover my mouse over this point long enough, then this axis would appear, and then I can just click to the point where I want to draw. So this is how you can create a rectangle. There are obviously easier ways to do it, but that explains you the drawing basics. Now, what happens if I want to create a circle? For that, we have a tool again. You just have to pick a starting point, and you just have to create a circle with the radius. Now, if I want to snap to this, for example, I can do that just fine. So in our software, there are snapping options, and if you're coming from a CAD background, you would understand what these things do. But the point is that the snapping options can be set up similarly to any other CAD software packages. So if you want to, for example, make a line parallel with some other lines, then this is where you can find these elements. But this is not something a beginner should know. But I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so let's draw a few more circles, like one here and another one there. And let's say that we have quite a few drawing elements, and I want to select them. Selection works like this. Hover your mouse over the thing you want to select and click. Now this is just one side of the rectangle. What happens if I want to select all four of them? What I do is I hit the Control key and just keep on clicking on the elements I want to select, and then I have the whole thing selected. If I want to move it, I just click on the moving marker and move it somewhere else. Now if I want to select circles, for example, the same thing, just hit the Control key and click on the elements you want to select. Now this is where the selection rectangle comes into the picture. If you click your mouse button and hold it and pull your cursor, then you see that there's a selection rectangle. But if you do the same thing into the opposite side, you see that the rectangle is having a different color. Now what does that mean? It means that you can select things two ways. If you do the blue selection rectangle all the way to this point, then you see that only those elements which are fully encompassed with the rectangle would be selected, like so. But if you use the green one, then all the elements which are merely touching the selection rectangle will be selected, like here. Let's do it like this. So only, if you see the circle over here, only the left hand side is touching the rectangle, but still it's going to be selected. All the elements which are going out of the rectangle would be selected as well. So these are just very basic things, but these would be the things that we will be showing during the show. If you want to delete something, click on it, hit the delete key, or just hit this X over here. So these are the very, very basics. I just wanted to clarify these things because we are going to make extensive use of these elements. And now let's create something more interesting. Let's create buildings. How do we get started? First of all, I'm going to use millimeters as a unit. If you want to change that to something else, you have to go to the settings, units and angles, and here you can set something up, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to use millimeters for now. Okay, so if you want to change it, you can do it there, but I'm just going to use it in millimeters. What do? We want to create this thing over here. So how do we do that? By the way, this is what I'm showing you is the tutorial what you can download. So follow along once you have downloaded it. So we go to building and we start creating a wall. Now a wall is much like a line, only this one has thickness and height because we are talking about the 3D software, right? So it has to have thickness. If you right click and go to properties, you can set up these elements. You can say that this wall should be 2700 millimeters and the thickness is 380. I think that is fine. Hit OK, click on the wall icon, and here's what we do. We select a point where we want to draw the wall from, and we sort of give it a direction. So I want to go from south to north, and the distance should be 7,500. Okay, here's what happened. Once you have drawn the first item, you have an additional 3D window opening up. And there's a few differences in terms of navigation between the two, so let me just show you. So first of all, we have a 2D here. If you scroll in, you zoom in. If you scroll out, you zoom out. If you push the scroll key and move your scroll around or mouse around, then the drawing will be panned. In the 3D, on the other hand, if you activate the 3D by clicking on it, you can click on this button over here, which magnifies the drawing. You can scroll out to zoom out, scroll in to zoom in. And if you hold the scroll wheel and the shift key, then you can orbit around your model like that. So again, select the 2D, magnify it, and let's carry on with our work. Like so, we are just going to open up again the wall menu and draw the wall like this. It's going to be, let me just use the cheat sheet. It's going to be 5,000 millimeters. And now we go again south, which is for the distance of 4,400, and another distance would be 3,500, and then we go south again, and that is going to be 5,200, and lastly we have penultimate wall here for 6,400, and then I have a gap over here. So how do I bridge that? I just have to put my mouse over there, let it snap to the wall corner, and here I have the first several walls. Okay, here's one problem I do not particularly like. The insides are brownish, the outside is white. So how do I change that? I select the whole drawing. Remember the selection rectangle? Now this is where it comes handy. And now the software tells me in this property grid that these are the elements I have selected, and I see that the finish face exterior is brownish. I want to change that, so I'm just clicking on this button and change it to something, yes, bright white. And there we go. Now all my walls are white. Next thing I have to do, I have to have some partition walls. Partition walls are actually drawn with the same way, but there's one difference. Thickness will be different. It should be 100 millimeters. So what do? We go to wall, right click, open up the property grid, and in the property you can yeah, sorry, I just opened up the browser instead. In the property grid you can change the thickness to 100 millimeters. And from now on, we are going to draw with this. I'm just going to change the texture as well by linking these two together. So now I am going to have a 2700 high wall, 100 millimeters thick, white on both sides. So what do? I want to have a partition wall over here. I'm just going to hit the wall icon and start a drawing point, but here's something weird and funny. If I draw the wall like this, it's not going to line up with my wall corner. So what do? I have to switch the reference line. The reference line is, or the line should stay where it is. That's the blue line I'm drawing, but the wall in relation to the line has to be flipped. And I can do that either with this palette of menus, so just click on the one which you actually need, or you can just hit the F5 key and then the wall should move where it's supposed to be. So here we go. We just created one wall over there. You see in the 3D, it appears automatically. The next task is a bit trickier though. I want to have a partition wall which is going to be on in here, but it's not snapped to any of these corners. It's actually, the distance is 2400 from this corner. So how do I do that? There's a tool for that. Select the wall that you want to work with, and down here you see a reference point tool. What this does is that you click on one of the points from where you want to measure. So you want to say this is 2400 from that point on the right. Hit enter and then you can draw. So with this very simple tool you can override where your wall is going to be positioned, because if I just hover my mouse, you see that weird values appear, 7,300 and something. Where is this information coming from? It's coming from the project origin. This is where the 0 is, and everything is made in relation to that, because now we are working with sort of global parameters. But if I click on the reference, I can override where this reference is going to be taken from. So that's very important. One thing Now the wall connections are good, but let's assume that you have a much more complicated drawing than that, and you have wall connections which are not getting together. So let's say you have two walls like this and another two sets of walls like that. So if you, again, I have to have another wall here. So if you want to have an L connection connecting these walls together, what you can do is that you can click on the wall and extend its length, but the very interesting and easy way to do it is to do it with these menus. L connection, for example, I just click on this, click on one of the walls, click on the other walls, and then the two walls are going to be extended. If I want to have a T connection, then I use the same tool, only this time it's going to be a T1, the wall which is going to run into the head of the T. Quick remark here, if you have lines instead of walls, then the tools are different. So if you want to make a T connection between lines, then you have to use these tools, not these ones, but these ones. So you just click on the lines and they would attach. I just wanted to make a quick remark about that. So let's just highlight the whole thing and get rid of it. Okay, so now we have a very basic drawing. One crucial thing is missing, and that is the floor. So how do we create a floor below this? We go to building and find the slab tool. If you right click on the slab, you go to properties, you can fine tune how your slab looks like. I want to change the side material to something else. It's going to be bright white. But apart from that, this is good enough. So I'm just going to hit OK, go to slab, slab by walls, highlight the whole drawing, hit enter, and the slab is created. Here's something interesting for you who are working in a CAD environment for a long time. You want to know how to change the line weight. If I zoom in, you see that there's a line thickness over here, and you want to know what governs this thickness because you might want to turn this off. If you go to the property grid, here there's a line weight scale button with which you can put the scale to 1 to 1, or you can crank it up to 1 to 100 or 1 to 200. If you are working in a dense drawing, then you might want to turn this into 1 to 1 or 1 to 10. Just make sure that it's convenient to work with. Otherwise, you won't see the corners properly. So that's just, I wanted to make that clear. We have been working quite a while now, so it's time to save. And saving is done like so. If you go to File, you have a couple of options. You could save this project with the original name, but I always like to make backup copies with save as. So what I would do, I just click save, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be a webinar project 001.pro. That way the file path is changing as well, and that way you can make sure that you have a backup copy. The software does make automated savings, but it's easier to do it manually because then you would know exactly what you have done so far. Okay, so we have the basic drawing, we have the slab, but interestingly the slab has to extend. That's not a problem, I can draw a slab like that, so I just going to hit the slab, but interestingly, no matter where I click, I cannot really find a slab. I don't want to select the wall, I want to select the slab. And this is where this jump list comes into the picture. You can drop this menu down and you can find the tool what you're looking for, or you can just toggle these options and do that until the desired element is selected. So click on the element you want to change, hit offset, and we are going to offset this back or outside for 1000 millimeters. And there we go. So we have now a nice sort of terrace for this vestibule. What we do next is that we have to have an additional floor because we want to create a flat roof above this very simple drawing. So what do we do? First, let us get familiar with the floor manager by clicking on this ground floor button. You see that there are 4 levels, 4 floors now. Why? I never created these. Well, you don't have to. The software creates these for you, so it's very convenient. If you want to have additional floors, you don't have to create them, even though you could create additional ones. These are already coming with the project. So this is where we are. And the first floor, we are going to rename that to flat roof. And I want to sort of have another floor above this one, and that is going to be just a flat roof, maybe with some walls around it, so we are not going to fall off. So what do we do? The easiest way is to select the whole drawing and copy it 1 floor up. And we do that by selecting the whole thing and going to ground floor and clicking on this element over here, copy objects to other floor, and select where you want to copy these things to. Okay, and now you have 2 floors on top of each other. These are carbon copies, 100% accurate copies of each other, but we don't we know that this one is not going to be an actual floor, this is going to be a roof. So select the 3D, magnify it, and select the elements you don't need. Select this wall, hit Ctrl, select the other one, and delete it. Next thing we want to do, we want to make sure that all the walls are the same height. If you select one wall, you can change the height, but you don't want to do that one by one, right? So select the 2D, select the whole drawing. Notice that if you are on the roof floor, then only the roof floor is going to be selected. And go to the selection tab, drop it down, and say that you only want to select the walls and not the slabs. Walls only. And then you can just change the height to 1000 millimeters. And then you have a very nice like roof above your tiny vestibule. What do we do after that? I need to have some kind of doors and windows, otherwise there's not going to be enough light and you won't be able to sort of enter the location. So let's proceed with doors and windows. They are to be found up here, but before we do that, maybe you have already realized I'm still on the roof floor. So if I want to add anything here, then that's not what I want. Hitting the page up and page down keys would navigate between the floors, or you can just use this jump list over here. So I want to make sure I'm on the ground floor, and now comes the door. So the door library can be reached here. Let's just customize it. And I'm going to start with a very simple flush door. The width should be 900 millimeters, 2100 would be the height, that's fine. Distance from wall line, I have to decrease that. And after that, what I have to do, I have to position it somehow. So I'm just going to click OK. And this is where I want to position it to, but I don't know where I want to position it from. So how do we do that? I click on the door icon and hover my mouse over the wall, and now this green node appears, and the green node tells me that currently my door is going to be 1420 millimeters from the corner on the right. This is a good position, but I want to change it to something else. I want to change it to 950, and if I do that, the software moves my door over there, but my job isn't done because I have to decide on the opening direction, which is going to be like that. Later on you can fine-tune that, don't worry about that. So one door is placed now with the actual properties where it's supposed to be. Now let's move another one here, and that is going to be 2400 from that reference point. But see that is a problem because my reference point is at the bottom, not on the top. So what do? Again, I hit the F5 key, or I just change the reference point from here. So F5 key would move the point to the internal node, or push it again and it goes to the topmost point, and it's going to be 2400. And there we go. Again, decide on the opening direction. This is fine. So now I have two doors over here, and I just realized that I did make a mistake. This should be going into the opposite direction. So what do? We select the door and click on this marker over here. That actually allows me to flip the door or mirror it left and right. So I just did it. I want to mirror it back, so I'm mirroring it, and I want to flip it left right. Here we go. So that's the actual circumstance that we want to create. Okay, how about we create one door over here, and that is going to be a double door. So I'm just going to go to door, and I have a jump list of double doors over here. So I'm just going to hit on the one that I actually need, and I want to add the door over here with its internal reference point. I hit the F5 key to jump to the middle, and now I can snap it to the middle of the wall and add it like that. So this is how you can do it. If you want to change the door's type, for example, then you can do that by jumping into its properties and find something which is I don't know, a bit more a bit nicer. So I'm just going to go to the door library over here, and if I know the name of the door, I'm just going to type in double entrance door with mirrors, I think, and I'm just going to use something which is a bit nicer than that, so I'm just going to use that one. So software asks me, do you want to keep the previously set dimensions? I think I want to do that, so I'm just going to do that, and here we go. So that's how you create something a bit nicer, not fancy, but you get the idea. So we are done with the doors. Next thing, we have to take care of the windows. So how do we create a few windows over here and there? Same deal. You just click on the window, right click, and you have to define how large the windows should be. It should be 1500 times 1500, and the sill height is 900. That's fine by me. And now I have to position them. I'm just going to use the cheat sheet to know where I want to position my windows to. They are going to be from this corner 1000 millimeters. So again, I have to hit the F5 key until the node jumps where it's supposed to, and I'm typing in 1000, and here we go. So the window is now created just like that. So every time you do something, it's going to be happening in the 2D and the 3D as well. So one window is done. Let's have another one. I think this time it should be 1000 from this corner. So again, click on it, hit the F5 key until it moves, and 1000 millimeters from the corner, and there you go. So we have a nice vestibule with a door, 2 windows, and a couple of internal walls and doors. Next thing what we have to take care of is actually the perspectives. I did talk about this before, but a quick refresher is in order. So what we are working on now is something which we call an axonometric view, which means that no matter how far you are looking at things from, the distances would not get shorter like it would get normally when you look at something. If you zoom in something, you cannot enter the location. No matter how far you are zooming in, you would never be able to enter this. For that, we have a different representation mode, and that is called the perspectives, which can be reached with this eye. Now, when and why you would use perspectives? This is mainly useful when you are working internally in a room or a house. First of all, this is our location. I have to change this representation style to 2D view, so that way we can see the partition walls. This is where I am, this is where I'm looking at, so that's not good. I'm just going to grab onto my viewpoint and move it until I find what I'm looking at. And moving this node, I can move myself inside the location, like that. By clicking on the plus icon, I can record this viewpoint and name it. The name should be vestibule number 1. And I'm just going to make another one, and that is going to be, I'm just moving the viewpoint, moving my view, and that's right. Click, and that is going to be vestibule 02. Now, it's always good to give sequential names or use the alphabetic order, because that's the order the software is going to use the perspectives in. So just make sure you have some kind of ordering convention in here. So let's hit OK. And now you see that you are in perspective. The navigation works the same way, so you can just use the right click and hold and drag to move around and zoom in and zoom out. What is missing over here? I think a couple of dimensions we have to add, because we don't have any. I did promise you that I'm going to show you that. I'm just going to show you that very quickly. I'm not going to go into that much detail, but this is how dimensions are generally added. So let's go to the 2D. Zoom out a bit so I have more space, and go to dimension and quick dimension. All I have to do, select the element you want to dimension and move the cursor to position the dimensional line like that. Select the next one, line up, there you go. I think I wanted this one instead. Yeah, there you go. So if I want to select another one, let's say this, I do it like that. So very easy, very simple, and most importantly, these dimensions are in connection with the model. So if you make any changes later on, then the dimensions would comply with the changes. For now, I'm not going to show you that because that would be off topic, but I'm going to have another session which shows you just that. Okay, so why did we even set up these perspectives? That is because we want to create furniture pieces in this drawing. Another thing I haven't showed you is how to navigate between perspectives. That is done with the page up and page down key, or you can just use these elements over here. Okay, so furniture. Where do we get furnitures from? There are certain ways. There's the design center for a start, where you can click on objects and then you can browse the things that you're looking for. Let's say that I want to have 2 armchairs over here in this corner. So what do? I'm just looking for armchair. Hit enter, and these are the elements which are in the software, so you don't have to download them. These are already inside the software. Click, drag, and release, and there's going to be one nice chair over here, but I think I need 2, so I'm just going to go into the 2D, enlarge, and click on the element. First, I want to move it, so I'm just going to hit the movement marker and move it somewhere else, and then I want to have another copy over here. Of course, you could go back to Design Center, dragging and dropping it, but that would not teach you how to copy things. So I'm just going to select the element again, click on the selection marker and say move a copy from, and click a starting node and move your copy over here, and then you can have access to the rotation node like this. So now the element is rotated. I think I need a coffee table over here, so I'm just going to say that coffee table. I think this one is good, so I'm just going to drag it and drop it. And now I have a very simple setup over here. So this is like a waiting room, a vestibule for maybe a doctor's office or something. So here you can find some time to read some magazines. This is one way to do it. But of course, there are other ways to get things into the system, and these are the external libraries. Now, from the external libraries, there's quite a few. So there's the BIM object library, the largest element of BIM and architectural elements, Synchronia, our own showroom, which I demonstrated yesterday, or the Cadenas library. But the one I enjoy using the most is the 3D warehouse, which is made and maintained by the US company called Trimble. Now, the 3D warehouse is notorious for having a large amount of user-generated items. This is good, and this is a bit, well, I'm not saying bad, but you have to be very careful about these elements. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say I want to have an armchair in this model. I'm just going to type in armchair, hit enter. Now, there's all kinds of different armchairs, varying in sizes or actually sort of quality. So this one would not do, this one is very nice, but maybe this one is too complicated. So for this reason, there are two sort of pre-filters on the left. What does these things do? First of all, in any kind of CAD software, you're always paying for your work in time. And what this means that if you want to render something, then if something is very complicated, something like an object has too many surfaces, then it would take more time to render and use that object. Time means money spent on something else. So what you have to do, you have to be careful about what kind of elements, what kind of objects you are going to be using. So you could potentially download a very heavy element, which is like tons of surfaces, but you probably don't want that because it might be too large for your model and you don't need that kind of complexity. That would take too much time to process. So you have these pre-filters with which you can filter down the physical size of the model, or I mean the number of megabytes it's going to take, or the number of polygons it's going to amass. So the general rule of thumb is to keep this under 50,000 surfaces, because if it's over, then you are going to have way too many surfaces, which would be impossibly long and difficult to render. If you have something in your model which is like a focal point of your design, you could go above this, of course, but if you're just looking for chairs and nominal things, then this is the way to go. So let's keep it simple. I like this armchair. I'm just going to click on it. I see that the polygons, it's not that much, so 2000, that's fine. That's nowhere near the 50,000 mark. And it's half a megabyte, so I think this is good enough. So I'm just going to hit download and say that I want to have this one in my design. And I'm just going to do it like this. I'm just going to make another corner over here, and I want to have another armchair one there, another one there. I'm going to the 2D and rotate this armchair like this. And I'm just going to move it there. Maybe I want to move this one as well out of the doorway, so that way people can move. And yeah, maybe I want to have a coffee table here, maybe I don't. It doesn't really matter. What matters though is that once you have created the outlay that you were looking for, you can create sort of variations of your model. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say that you want to have one version of your model where you have these two chairs, but you want to have another version of the model where you have these two chairs. So how do we make variations of the model? Well, that is actually where the layers come into the picture. Now, what are layers? Layers are, it's a bit hard to explain, because back in the day when I was a kid, I was in school, and we had this kind of presentations before projectors came along. We had these analog old projectors where the teachers had this see-through foil and they wrote things on it and they could project their writing onto the wall. If the teacher superimposed a couple of foils or layers on top of each other, then all the contents of the layers were visible to us. Let's say a diagram of a flower during biology class, or maybe some kind of chemical reaction illustration or form. We could see all the things, and if the teacher removed a few layers, then those things would be gone from the screen, and then she put back a couple of layers extra, and then we saw all the things. So I'm just saying that because this is how layers work in a CAD software. So let's get familiar with them. If you click on the layer manager over here, and this thing comes up. So this is scary. So when I first saw this, I was like, there's no way I could understand what these things are. So what are these things even? I don't even have decoration and bathroom elements. Why do I have all these layers? Well, let's just first click on the use layers tab, and then the site would be a bit more, a bit less frightening, because I see I have 4 layers altogether. One called dimensions, then interior, slab, wall, and these are actually the elements that I have in my model. So I have load bearing walls, sure. I have a slab, I have furnishing, and I have the dimension lines. That's fine. Let's just close this for a second, and let's introduce another element to this drawing, which is going to be a column. Let's say over here. Once I have positioned this column and I open up my layer manager again, I go to use layers, I see that I have another, or I should be having another column. I think it's not on the right. Yeah, it's put to another layer, so it's now on layer number 1. So if I go to my layer manager, I see that now a layer number 1 just appeared, which holds another extra element. So every time you introduce something new to your project, they are going to be put automatically onto layers. Now, why are layers important? That's because you can enable and disable their visibility. For example, you can disable the visibility of all the furnishing pieces, like that, and then everything will be gone from your model, right? Well, not entirely gone, more like invisible. So if I go to the 2D and use this 3D hammer to refresh my 3D, you see that the objects are gone. But they're not entirely gone. They are still there. They are just put onto a layer of which visibility I have currently disabled. So I'm just going to enable it again. I think they are available. Yeah, turn off on again. I think it's, yeah. Now I just have to rebuild it. So this is how you can put things onto separate layers, and if I go back to the 2D, I can now see where my elements actually are, because I'm pretty sure that I just made them disappear. Yeah, here we go. I'm just going to make them come back. If you rebuild the 3D, then the objects appear. Now, how do we use this to our advantage? Now, what I can do, I can make a layer group onto which these elements are used. Let me just rebuild the 3D again, because yeah. This is actually very funny that the elements are not appearing. Let me just do something. I'm just highlighting all the content which are not to be found in the 3D, like this. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I think I know why that is. See, this is something I also wanted to show you, but I wanted to do it at a later stage. So every layer has 2 settings. One is the visibility and the other one is the editability. This padlock shows you what are the things that you can edit. So if you have the elements like this, then they are going to be shown, but you can't access them anyhow. So you just have to go back to the layer manager and turn on the visibility of these layers, and then you will be scot-free. Now, see, the elements are back. So I want to have one variation of the room when I have these things, and want to have another variation when I have these 2 chairs. So what do? I go to my layer manager, go to all layers. Again, don't get scared about these whole things. Now they are making sense, right? So these are just all the other layer possibilities you have. Again, disable and enable the visibility, and turn on and off the editability. So what we are looking to do is now we are looking to create 2 additional layers, which I can do with this button over here. And if I do that, I have layer number 1. I want to name it vestibule version 1. Hit OK. I want to have another layer, and that is called vestibule version 2. Okay, this is done. If I go to V, then I have them. Okay, hit OK. And now I'm just going to select my elements with the control click. Again, this is very useful. And I go to the, let me just enlarge this. I go to the layer manager over here. I see that these elements are belonging to an interior living room layer, but all the other elements do. So I have to click on the layer manager and find my vestibule layer. And I'm going to put this as version number 1. And I'm going to select these 2 elements, 1 and 2, and these are going to be vestibule number 2. Okay. And what happens now? Let me just put this back to small. I don't need it too large, so I'm just going to make it like that. If I use the layer walk, for example, that I can turn on and off the visibility of the versions I want to work with. So let's say I want to visualize version number 1. Let's hit OK. Hit the 3D hammer, and what happens is that version number 2 is gone, But if I go back to the floor plan and I enable the visibility of version number 2 and disable number 1, and if I click to 3D now, then this appears. So this is how you can sort of create furnishing variations, but this could be applied to any other uses. So use the layers, get familiar with them, because the more time you spend with them and get to know them, you would find that they are very, very close friends and you don't have to get scared by them. They're going to be your friends in the long run. So I have mentioned the 3D hammer several times down here. I think now it's time to talk about this in detail. So what it does. Generally speaking, whenever you do something in Archline, the 2D and the 3D are synchronized. So things happen simultaneously. So if I move into the 2D and move this chair over here, for example, then you see that in the 2D and the 3D things happen simultaneously. Similarly, most transactional things can be done in the 3D as well. So if you prefer working in 3D, that's fine. There are certain scenarios when the 2D and 3D are not linked automatically, and you have manual control over when and how you want to update the 3D. Why is that? That is because if the software would always update the 3D, then it would take too much processing power. So you can sort of enable and disable the 3D whenever you need it. One good example is when you are actually creating several variations, like I'm pulling back number 2, the number 1 variation. See, now it's not in sync. So if I click on the 3D hammer, it is in sync. So the 3D hammer is actually rebuilding the 3D based on what is actually visualized in the 2D. One other example, if I click on only this chair and I hit the 3D hammer, then only the chair is going to be visualized, which is very good if you have a smaller detail you want to work with. Hit the 3D hammer again and the whole floor plan is going to be visualized. There are some other things it can do on the other hand. Let's say that I want to create like a cutaway model of this location. Before I do that, I click on the representation style over here and I go back to axonometry, just like that. And let's say I want to have like a cut like this one. So how do I do that? I select the 2D and I click on the 3D hammer and I say create a cutaway view. I select the rectangle and then the software says I'm just going to chop this down to 2 pieces. Is the other side gone? Well, from the 3D it is, but it's not entirely gone. It can be rebuilt anytime. So I'm just going to go back to the quick 3D and the model is rebuilt while the selection rectangle stays there. So if you ever want to regenerate the 3D section, you can just click on it and it's going to be regenerated. So that is a very easy way to sort of only visualize the things that you want to work with. Everything else can go. So you don't have to have the whole thing projected. Let's go back to this menu. Let's go back to build 3D model, and here you can define what and how you want to rebuild. If you want to build a model without any doors and windows, if you want to make the wall framing visibility, or if you want to just build this current one floor and I don't want to have the other floor, how do I do that? I do this and the slab, the second floor, is actually gone. So by playing around with these 3D rebuild options, you can find that it's very flexible how you can manage your content. Just visualize the things that you actually want to show. A few things I haven't mentioned is the representation styles. If you click on this button, you can click on if you want to have a consistent color scheme or you want to have a realistic one. Now, what does the realistic mean? It means that if you find two faces which have the same material but they are in a different role, that the colors will be different, because in reality this surface would seem different as this one. So this is better for realistic representation, but if you want to get the colors right, try to use it in consistent color. Just a reminder, in this one, if you want to have a sort of like a paper cut model, you have abilities over there. If you want to have a wireframe like a see-through vision, then you have that. I like to use the consistent color because that just gives you a better representation. And if you use this one, this is very good, underlay floor plan, then you have a very nice floor plan representation under the model, which you can even offset. So that way you have a nice sort of X-ray version of the model and also the floor plan. So this is very good for client presentations. This way you can show them how your project is going to look like. Okay, so that is actually what I wanted to discuss during this session.
Okay, we came to the end of the webinars. I hope you like it. I will now share the homework. So homework is of course not necessary, but it's if you will do it, you will learn along the workshop. It is recommended. I will give you 2 homeworks for today. You can pick one. You can do something in your own projects if you want. But in first homework, you will open a project. I will send it to you on your email after this. And you will open a project with a room which is already designed. Just the walls are designed. And inside you will put furniture in your style. You will move, rotate, copy, and delete it as you want, and adding texture and colors to surfaces. In this way, you can learn the basics of interior. And the second homework is about architecture basics. Here you will open a new project, so I will not send you any of our projects. You will create new and design easy house as you want. You can also use some plan if you have it on your own, work on your own projects, which is also recommended. If you have your own stuff to do, you can try to work in Archline, so you can find the issues right away and I can help you with it. Okay. When you do the homework, you can do print screens of it, or when you have some issues, you can do a print screen and write me what doesn't work, where you can't go further, help me with that, help me with whatever, and I will help you right away or ASAP when I can. Okay, and if you have any issues with installation, also write me, because I will connect you with our staff who will help you with technical issues. I will help you with the software, which tools can you use and stuff like that. People from our office will help you with installations and technical issues. So also, if you have any problems with that, you can tell me and we will help you. I think that was it. Tomorrow we see each other again at 5. And we will talk about bathroom design and kitchen design. Okay, if you have any questions, you can write me in email. And if you want to talk about a specific topic, you can also write me so I can prepare myself to show you tomorrow or in the next few days to show you here in the workshop. So if any of you have questions right now, you can tell me, or we can hear each other through email or the next days. Okay, so if there is no question, we will see each other tomorrow. And check your emails. I will send everything to you. Thank you.